President Cyril Ramaphosa has offered condolences to SADC countries that have been affected by Cyclone Freddy. Countries like neighboring Mozambique, Malawi and Madagascar have been hard hit by the cyclone, which has claimed close to 140 lives. President Ramaphosa has extended his thoughts on behalf of the nation to the affected countries. In a statement, Ramaphosa says that South Africa wishes that these extreme weather incidents will subside so that recovery and rebuilding efforts can proceed. The United Nations and European Union-led disaster alert system has issued a red alert project that some 2.3 million people will be impacted. Meanwhile, a search for victims is underway in the Malawian city of Blantyre, and the government there has declared a state of emergency. All right, we are now joined via Zoom by meteorologist Annette Botha to weigh in on Cyclone Freddy that has hit Mozambique, Malawi and Madagascar. According to Reuters, the storm has killed more than 100 people. Freddy has been recorded as one of the strongest storms ever recorded in the southern hemisphere and could be the longest lasting tropical cyclone. A very good afternoon to you, and thanks so very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Thank you very much, Flo. And yeah, let's talk about Freddy.
All right. Well, what's been your observation then on this storm? As you know, it's been recorded as, firstly, the longest lasting tropical cyclone, and some even saying that the hardest one. What are your thoughts?
So we just need to look at Freddy's journey. Freddy actually started to develop over just north of the Australian coast. And that's more than 36 days ago on the 6th of February. So Freddy has come a long way. Freddy is also the first storm to strengthen into an intense tropical cyclone, or equivalent to a Category 5 hurricane, and has crossed the entire Indian Ocean, made landfall over Madagascar on the 21st of February, then moved over Madagascar, made landfall over Mozambique on the 24th of February, was just hanging there for a few days, and then made another U-turn back to Madagascar, just moved over the southwestern coast and made another U-turn in a northwestwards direction, where it actually made landfall on Saturday over the seaports of Kuala Mena in the Zambezia province in Mozambique. And that's where we've got those reports of damaging houses and flooding and widespread flooding. So like you've mentioned, Freddy is definitely most likely, Flo, the longest lived storm. This still needs to be verified by the meteorological organization, the World Meteorological Organization, because they are looking at the entire path of Freddy. The one question they have, or they need to address, is the fact that throughout this period of Freddy's lifetime, the storm periodically weakened when it was sitting over Mozambique into a weak state. So they obviously have to address that in order to evaluate whether it's the most longest lived storm ever.
Apart from whether it's the longest or whatever in terms of time, what is different about this cyclone from others? I mean, how different is Freddy from others? I mean, you're talking about what sounds to me, with my ear, a change in direction, and I'm sure there's a meteorological term for it, but what does seem like a changes in direction and the pressure, is that something that's usual when it comes to cyclones? And is that something that you're ordinarily seeing anyway when we're dealing with cyclones?
So when we usually look at the trajectory of a cyclone moving into the Indian Ocean and making its way to Madagascar, that is quite frequent, especially this time of the year, because we are still in the cyclone season, which is usually the start of the year. And it's very usual for cyclones to make landfall over the coast of Madagascar. But what makes this cyclone extremely unusual and historical is just its trajectory and the way it's moved. It made landfall, made another U-turn, and made landfall again. So Freddy is right in the history books, and this will be a storm that we will be talking about for maybe another 100 years, 1,000 years. It's definitely a record-breaking storm.
So there's no way of predicting, when it comes to the easing of the cyclone, given this change in direction. It may seem as though it is easing, but then pick up again. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct, Flo. Cyclone forecasts are extremely fickle because it's an extremely big system. So there's so many different variables on the ground that plays a role in the movement and the change of these types of systems. That's why whenever we do a cyclone forecast, it's more a probability, and we do have a forecast cone where we see the system will move according to weather models, but we've seen these systems just, they've got a mind of their own and they are extremely fickle. Freddy is currently just an overland depression, what we call a low pressure system, but it is yet again starting to make another U-turn in a southwards direction. And forecasts are indicating Freddy will stay in this weakened stage, but will still cause heavy rainfall over the southern parts of Malawi as well as the Zambezia province of Mozambique for the next few days before it moves it back into the Mozambique Channel.
Yeah, at this stage we're hearing about more than 100 people having died, and I know that meteorologists and everyone involved tries very hard to predict, where the cyclone will go and where it will make landfall and so forth. But the concern is the people, on the ground. I mean, what's the advice there? Because we don't really know where exactly it would be hitting, but I suppose there's fear on the ground when it comes to whether or not it will land where they are.
Looking at cyclone forecast throughout the years, it's quite obvious the path that a forecast will move. So, like I've mentioned, they usually move over Madagascar and then actually move to Mozambique. Just exactly where they'll make landfall it just changes according to the weather conditions. But that area is extremely vulnerable, and I think the best next move would be adaptation, because they know they are going to get more cyclones, and we've seen with a warmer climate, these types of cyclones are becoming much stronger and more long-lived. So the best move would be adaptation, because they, like every cyclone season, they will see at least one or two cyclones move over their coast.
All right, Annette, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for giving us that information. Much appreciated.